Hello and welcome to the Marin Sonoma Shop Local podcast, where we highlight local businesses, their products, and services so that you can make the informed choice of where to shop local next. I'm your host, Kyle Masterpool, and I am here today with Dr. Robert Adamich of Adamich Chiropractic. Good morning, and how are we doing, Dr. Adamich?
Hey, Kyle, I'm doing really well. Excited about this time that we get to spend together and looking forward to your questions and sharing with the audience. So,
You and me both. And before we get started, going to your website and knowing you personally, of course, on your website, there's a few decals from the past 4 years, I want to say, on there. Why don't you tell some of the listeners your accolades that you've accumulated over your time as a business owner?
oh, well, thank you for asking that. I've been voted the best chiropractor in Marin by both the Pacific Sun and the Marin Independent Journal. The Marin Independent Journal has a couple categories. Sometimes I've been the runner up, but I get accolades for that. So yeah, on the website there's a number of icons that are at the bottom, meaning that the Readers' Choice Awards and the general public has voted for me as the best chiropractor for 4 to 5 years with some of those. So I feel very honored about that.
Yeah, it's definitely a great honor and makes me honored to have you here on the podcast today.
Thank you.
So let's start off with giving the listeners an overview of the services that Adamich Chiropractic provides.
Sure. As a chiropractor, I would say one of the things that is common among all chiropractors is that we want to address what's out of alignment in the body and find the best way to get it back into alignment. What a lot of people don't know is that my focus is not just on the symptoms that are occurring. And of course, the symptoms are what drive a lot of people to come in, but what's the cause? And so I really want to put a lot of attention on the source of what is going on within that person's body. There can be, I remember early on, I had about 3 new patients in a row that had very similar symptoms, but the cause in each one of them was different. Part of it was based on their health history, the physical trauma that they might have had, um, their posture. That's another aspect of a lot of things that can lead to issues going on in the body. So I provide in the first 2 sessions, very thorough focus on what's happening, their health history, and what's happening both posture-wise, ranges of motion, neurologically, orthopedic exams, and put a lot of focus on really getting to know who this unique person is that's coming in so I can address, I want to, of course, deal and have their symptoms that are there to decrease, but I want to, even more than that, get to the source and get them more higher functioning in their life, being able to do the things that they love to do. So,
And I know those in-depth consultations go a long way in those in-depth sessions because you hear a lot of people at times talk about, well, I just go in for a pop and a crack and then I leave. But you're
right,
about kind of the long-term picture there and making sure that they understand, especially what the cause is. Your pain may
yes,
be in your shoulder, but it could be something from your back and your posture that's actually the root cause, just the shoulders where you're feeling it. So that's
exactly.
phenomenal, and how you go about that with your clients. And for anyone who hasn't listened to episode, I believe it was episode 3 with Jennifer Dukes, and she actually gave a giant shout out to Dr. Robert Adamich for the work that he does. So go and
Mm.
listen to that if you haven't already. And we already talked about your awards and your accolades. What sets you apart from other chiropractic offices that you are consistently at the top of those lists?
So I would say that it is the real focus and care that I give to my patients when they come in. Um, and as I mentioned just prior to this, I really want to get to know what's going on in their body. A lot of people are not aware of how posture can affect their well-being, and the pandemic that we just came through uh, actually happened to be a perfect storm for me in my practice because um, a lot of people were all of a sudden working from home, and so their office desk became the kitchen counter or the dining room table. Adding to the poor posture going on, there was the added stress if they have children. Their children are now home from school, and people were just having a lot of issues going on within their bodies during this, the fear of getting sick. And so I saw a lot of people. My focus was on posture even before that, but it really became a highlight of my practice. It's one of the very first things I do. I do a posture analysis with every new patient and then review that um, somewhere between 3 and 5 months down the road so we can see what kind of improvement is occurring. And when that posture does improve, there's a term out there called tech neck, which is that forward head posture. And it just, anybody who has a cell phone is very common with, this posture.
Yeah.
The average adult is spending about 3 to 4 hours a day checking their phone like this. The average teenager is double that. And if they're gaming, they're even more than that on their device. So you can see what's happening with my head coming forward. It
Hmm.
literally retrains the cervical curve that is supposed to be there. The ears are supposed to be right above the shoulder. Very few people have that posture these days because of technology. So, a big focus that I have in my practice is one, increasing people's awareness about that. And then not only the adjustments, but what people can do at home to correct some of those. Retrain the body would be the term, to retrain the body and having the head, the ears come over the shoulder again.
Yeah. Do you have a way that you measure how much, like when they start, how much forward their head is, or
Yes.
kind of an analysis of how much they improved as time goes on?
Exactly. Yeah, there was a patient that came in with this. It's an app called the Posture Screen, and it's basically two photos. So it's a photo from the front and a photo from the side, and it puts all those the facts in there, the angles, the percentages, and what happens with most people with that tech neck is their head is forward. So the way uh, just physically it works in our body with gravity. If our head weighs on an average of around 10 pounds, if it's 1 inch forward, our head becomes twice that, so 20 pounds. So that means all the muscles in the low neck, upper back have to be holding not 10 pounds, but now 20. If it's 2 inches forward, it's 30 pounds. So that's why there's a lot of stress going on, especially in the upper shoulders. That can lead to headaches, fatigue at the end of the day. And then it can even lead to tingling and numbness going down the arms because the nerves that come out of the low neck and upper back end up going all the way down to our fingers. So a lot of those symptoms that can be happening in the arms and hands is really due to what's happening up in the neck.
I know some clients of mine, they've said, I carry my stress up top. And
Yeah.
I've said, not saying you're wrong, but I think your posture plays a role in this one. So I'm
Yeah.
sure you have to have those conversations sometimes too.
Yeah. All the time, all the time. It makes, on paper, it seems like it's a simple act of, oh, I don't have to do this. I can do this with my phone. But to be
Hmm.
able to do that, it's one of those habits. It's ubiquitous. It just everyone in the world is doing this. It's just so common, and but it leads to a lot of issues going on up in the neck and shoulders.
It takes extra thought to be all the way up here, and it
Yeah,
work smarter, not harder, right? So everyone,
yeah,
it's easier
yeah.
to look down. But
When I'm out in public and I do this, what I'll do is I'll cross my arm underneath this because 50% of the time that we're on the phone, we're reading texts
hmm
or emails or something. So we don't have to be like this. So I'll be doing this out in public, and I've literally people have come up to me and say, "What are you doing? Are you taking a picture? Do you?" So it's like I stand out in the crowd because I'm not doing this. If I did this, no one would think twice about coming up to me. But when I do this, people are going, "What's going on? What's happening with that guy?"
and
So
here's a business card.
right, exactly.
So you do a lot for your clients, and you're kind of showcasing that right now. Can you tell me about a patient outcome that you really take a lot of pride in?
Wow, I can think of a couple. I did have, speaking about tech neck, I did have a woman that came in, and her head was forward 3.22 inches. That's one of the extremes that I've seen. I would say on the average, people are around an inch to inch and a half. But this one was 3.22 inches forward. And that increased the weight of her head from 10 pounds to 46 pounds, something like that. It's all on this app that I told you about. So, and she was experiencing, the reason she came in is she was having a lot of those symptoms we just talked about: localized pain and that low neck, upper back, headaches, fatigue at the end of the day. There was some tingling numbness going down her arms. And working with me, getting on a maintenance program after the initial sessions was about a year and a half. Her head came back to 0.87 inches forward. So
Wow.
that's a dramatic change. And so from 45, 46 pounds down to, I think it was 17 or 19 pounds, something like that. Of course, the symptoms, there was a lot more freedom. She didn't have any of those symptoms anymore. So that for sure is one that comes to mind. And just this week, a patient came. It was just yesterday on Monday. Fairly new patient. He's been under care about 2 months. It's a musician. I love working with musicians because myself, I am a musician, and I know posture when I'm a guitarist. But no matter what instrument that we are playing, whatever creative aspect, I have people who they're creative artists making jewelry. So they're like bent over their table like this making jewelry. So it doesn't matter what we do out there. But so I want to support him in being able to perform and not be in pain. But a lot of it was getting him moving because during the pandemic, he stopped moving his body quite a bit.
Hmm.
He came in, he was very excited. He said, I took a hike that I haven't taken in over a year. It was a straight up incline. I wasn't sure if I could do it, but I made it to the top. And he walked from where he lived up to what's called Kent Lake Reservoir in the dam. And he took a picture and he sent me the picture and he said, I made it to the top of this. And he was just so excited that his body was able to do something that he hadn't been able to do for over a year. And this is just after a couple months of care. So things like that just really adds to the quality of one's life. And that's, for me, even more important than getting someone out of pain. It's getting them enjoying their body, moving it, and because our body is literally designed to move. And the biggest issues, and it happened a lot during the pandemic, that the other element was that if people were used to working out in a gym, gyms closed, they ended up being on the couch, their
Yeah.
laptop on their stomach, and spending hours a day not moving their body. And as you know, as a personal trainer, that is a perfect formula for a lot of issues going on in the body.
Absolutely. And for anyone listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, this podcast is also on YouTube. And if you want to go check out the YouTube, because Dr. Adamich lit up as he talked about this patient that he had. And I think anyone that sees that would say, this is the kind of guy I want working with me. And it just showed how much you cared because you were just all smiles as you talked about that last patient.
It makes me so happy. Yeah.
So we've talked about people with injuries, right? And I think a lot of times chiropractors, physical therapists, people say, well, when I'm hurt, that's when I go to them.
Right.
And that's not always the case. You know, you could have somebody who, and I know you've had like marathon runners that aren't
Mhm.
necessarily hurt, but they just kind of want to maintain what they have. They want to make sure they're not tightening up in between runs and that they're all lined up, chiropractic
Mhm.
joke, and good to go. So, can you tell our listeners why Adamich Chiropractic is there for them just beyond the injuries that everyone thinks about?
Sure. Well, we talked earlier. Pain is a great motivator, and it's a lot of the reasons why people come in the beginning. I was going to speak a little bit about my personal experience. I've been a marathon runner. I've been running for close to 50 years. I'm now a trail runner. I go trail running 3 days a week. My I go anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and 45 minutes. I'm 73 years old. And one of the reasons that I am one still running today and very rarely in pain is because I get regular chiropractic care. So, what happens when we do get adjusted is between each of the vertebrae, there's a pair of spinal nerve roots that come out and they end up going to every muscle, organ, tissue in the body. When there's misalignment, the communication to those muscles, organs, and tissues is diminished. When a
Mhm.
chiropractic adjustment is there, the nerve flow, the nerve communication, it's like it really is an electrical communication. It's like the light switch is functioning, it's working. When there's a misalignment, there's like a blown fuse in the area and the lights go out in whatever part of your body or it's not functioning well. So through my own personal experience, I get adjusted on a regular basis at least every 2 weeks just to keep my body tuned. I'm using my body every day, working over the table. I'm leaning forward a lot. So I need
Yep.
to be practicing everything that I'm telling my patients to do to help my posture from not going forward. Um, and so that's what I attempt to teach my patients when they come in. It's that regular care to help us keep functioning at the highest ability that we can. And as we age, it does not mean that um, we might have to readapt or change some of the activities that we do. And in a lot of cases, we don't. I mean, I like being a case in point because I love running and I want to keep doing it as long as I can. And it really works. So
I think 3 days a week of trail running is quite impressive. So you're doing a great job.
thank you. Thank you.
So I'm going to ask you a question that, quite personally,
Mhm.
I don't like being asked, but I'm going to
Okay.
ask you anyway because I think practitioners don't always stick into one box
Hmm.
because for me, I know I like the puzzle of having a client that's something new that I've never had before. So I'm
Right.
going to ask, and you can give me a few examples, just because, like I
Mhm.
said, I'm not a fan of being asked this question. But what kind of clients are the best fit for Adamich Chiropractic?
Yeah. So, initially, for sure, anybody who is in pain and if they want to, there's lots of ways to deal with pain in the body, but for sure, someone who doesn't want to be taking drugs, wants to avoid surgery, um, that's going to be somebody initially that's going to come in the door. Ideally, I think your question is ideally what would be a good fit. So someone who has been active in the past, but due to the pandemic, due to maybe an injury that has occurred in the past, a surgery that occurred, they want to get back to some as close as they can to how they were prior.
Hmm.
And post surgery is could be a really good situation. I've had one of my patients recently had knee surgery. He had physical therapy after the surgery to get the range of motion back, but he also a lot of when we're prior to knee surgery or hip surgery, for example, I'm going to be talking about the lower extremity, your body's been compensating for a long time. And those compensations are going to be throwing the hips out of alignment. That in itself creates a short leg, which means that there's going to be more focus on one side of the body than the other. So there's a lot of support that people who have had an injured lower extremity, and there's similar examples for upper extremity, but I'm just talking about the lower for right now. Um, just that support of getting the body back in alignment so that the nerve communication down through the legs all the way down to the feet is functioning as well as it can. And I've helped a number of people who were considering knee replacement surgery or hip replacement surgery. One of the issues was they were out of alignment. Coming in for regular adjustments has helped them postpone that. I have one patient, his surgeon was recommending knee replacement and he didn't want to do it. And this was 3 years ago. And so it can really help people put that off and possibly indefinitely, but at least put it off for an X amount of time that they're getting the regular adjustments because then the body is going to be responding more in a positive way than in a negative way. Um, So I love again working with people who have been active, but for whatever reason they're not as much. I love working with musicians because a lot of the posture that musicians have is not good, and I
Hmm.
like to keep them playing for them. For them, my goal is one to keep them active, but to keep them playing their instrument without pain and to be enjoying the gift that they have. So those
Absolutely.
are a couple examples of what I would consider real good fits for what I do.
Well, I hope you have that non knee replacement patient as a testimonial for you. Because for someone to
Hmm.
walk into a room and say, I was told I needed a knee replacement 3 years ago, and now I'm more active than I was before that,
Yeah, yeah,
that's quite some work that you do there.
yeah. And with that person, this is he's not someone who has run marathons. He likes walking, and one of the biggest enjoyments for him is walking his dog. He likes getting out in nature and going for long hikes, and he was not doing that, and so that created a decreased quality of life for him.
Mm.
And then for him to be able to go out and walk his dog without pain and to get out in nature, that was the miracle for him, or the joy for him in getting those regular adjustments. And joy for me to hear that.
You know, people love their pets, so you just stole the hearts of some people here.
Yeah, with our pets, with our grandchildren, I have one other story. One of she's been coming for about 6 months now, and she has grandchildren, and she wants to play with them, but she would always be hurting herself playing with her grandkids, and it was just totally frustrating her. And she was feeling depressed about that and feeling old. That's the other thing when we're in pain, we feel like we're older than we are, and just our quality of
That's
life
a good
is
point.
diminished. So one, and I actually shared, I might have shared this with you prior, but she came in and I didn't ask her this. She said, I just want you to know that I'm playing with my grandkids more. I'm not injuring myself the way I used to. If I do injure myself, I find myself getting better much quicker than I did before, and I'm much happier. So that's beautiful. I just love hearing that.
Absolutely. So we'll branch off that a little bit. What's the best compliment that a client, or I'm sorry, patient has ever given you?
Wow. Um, Wow, this is a good one. What's the best one? Well, I just keep thinking about some of these testimonials, like especially when I don't ask, like when I received this photo of Kent Lake, and his hands were like this, with Kent Lake behind it, so he's like, look what I did, and this woman just sharing that she's able to play with her grandkids with more ease and fear of getting injured. Um, yeah, there are just numerous comments like this that just make me feel good, make me know that I'm doing something of value, that I'm making a difference in people's lives, improving the quality of their lives. And it really is my purpose of what I do as a chiropractor, is to make a difference in people's lives so that they can feel more involved. I uh, you might have to stop me on this, but the reason I became a chiropractor was because of my experience of what happened through a chiropractic adjustment. And I had grown up with asthma. I was exercise induced. I was allergic to certain foods. I could play with kids on the block, but I couldn't join any sports team because I didn't know when I was going to get an asthma attack. If I was playing with the kids on the block, I can just go sit on the sidewalk and
Yeah.
get my breath back. And there was some medication that came back. This was back in the 50s. So there was not a lot what we know today around asthma. And it was in my mid 20s. I was in a car accident. Was recommended to go see a chiropractor. It was my very first experience. I walked in. I was used to going to MDs. My uncle was the family pediatrician, so I was used to shots and drugs and all kinds of stuff. So I went in. This chiropractor adjusted me. One of the areas he adjusted was my upper back. I walked out and I felt much better from the car accident. And then all of a sudden, within weeks, I got this urge to start running. And I didn't know where this was coming from because I knew what happened if I ran, but I started to run. And it wasn't, and that's when I started. When I ran, I was able to work through the asthma. That's when I started running marathons because all of a sudden I could move my body. It was this really a miracle for me. It wasn't until I got to chiropractic school many years later that I found out the nerves that go to the lungs are in that upper back. So this chiropractor, it was out of alignment because of the accident, but it'd probably been out of alignment maybe my whole life.
Yeah.
Sometimes, birth is the first traumatic experience in our bodies, and things can go out of alignment. I adjusted my granddaughter when she was 2 days old because she wasn't pooping, and the hospital wanted to do drugs and do interventions. And when I was holding her, I could feel that her low lumbar spine was not in alignment. There was a vertebrae that was sticking out. And I mentioned it to my daughter. She said, "Yeah, I feel that too." And I said, "Can I adjust her?" So I have this picture. She's literally on belly down on my legs, and I just put a little tiny input into her low back. Things smoothed out, and 30 minutes later, she had her first bowel movement, and they were able to leave the hospital. So they lovingly call it the poop adjustment now, and so that those are some of the I guess maybe more extreme stories, but it just shows the value of what happens in our body when we have remove the interference, remove the misalignment, the subluxation, the chiropractic term for that, which is a great term, a Greek term, sub meaning less than, and lux is light. So that there's that other connection with the electrical system in the body. When there's a misalignment, there's less light going through it. And so hopefully that answers your question.
Oh man, a ton. And I'm going to back up a little bit and say that when I asked what was the best compliment you've ever been given, you actually didn't address a compliment itself. You just talked about the patients themselves. And right back to earlier, it's your pride that you're taking in the patients. It's not look what I did, look what I did. You're saying look what they can do. And
Yes.
that would mean a lot to me as a patient, that it's not a feather in your cap, so to speak, or a notch in your belt. You are just so happy for them as people that you are trying to help. So I commend you on just your approach and your genuine care that you have for the people that walk through your door.
Thank you. Thank you.
So next we're going to move on to what I call local rapid fire. And this is where, because you're a San Rafael based business, I'm going to ask you
Mhm.
all questions about San Rafael.
Okay.
And this round of local rapid fire is presented by Sonoma Marin Senior Fitness, North Bay's premier service providing specialized personal training geared towards our Marin and Sonoma County seniors right in the comfort of your own home. That's right, they send a certified senior fitness specialist to your Marin or Sonoma County home to implement best in class programs and instruction. Visit SonomaRinSeniorFitness.com to book your first session today to stay active and live vibrantly.
Hmm.
All right, so we are going to get started with my first question being, what is your favorite place to eat in San Rafael? Could it be breakfast, lunch, dinner, coffee, your top spot?
What comes right up? It's called a Lotus Cuisine on 4th Street in San Rafael. It's Indian food, East Indian food. They have many organic and vegan options. Delicious food, perfectly spiced. One of the most beautiful atmospheres of a restaurant. That
Robert, do you work for them?
I know the owner by name. He knows me because I go in so frequently. I was just there
That's
on
funny.
Saturday for their brunch, or what do they call that? The open table buffet for they have buffets. I think almost every day that they're open. So, but just a great environment. Yeah,
If they're
they
on
should probably
Facebook and
pay me for
Instagram,
that.
I'll tag them when I post this.
Cool, cool.
What's your favorite view in San Rafael?
Wow, the view of Mount Tam. I am very blessed. There's many places where we can see beautiful Mount Tamalpais. I am very blessed. I actually can't quite see it today because of the fog, but our house, we're in the Santa Venetia area off North San Pedro Road, heading towards China Camp. But there's a bay inlet there called Las Colinas Creek, and our house backs up to that. And right at the end, we have this view of Mount Tamalpais. It just reminds me of the special of how special it is here in Marin. Most people don't know on Mount Tamalpais there's 5 lakes, and I did a lot of my training for my marathons on Mount Tam, and I just love getting on it to explore the trails.
Yeah, we had Made in Marin in our very first episode, and they're based in Nevada. And I asked them, "What's your favorite view in Nevada?" And they both they had a little bit of an awkwardness in them. They're like, "Honestly, it's our backyard. We just Marin has such beautiful views, and we just love the view from our backyard. So
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that."
yeah.
And what is your favorite event or festival in San Rafael?
Let's see. Probably the Mill Valley Film Festival. I love film. They It's been going on for 20 something years. They do a great job. Um, in San Rafael, one of the theaters that I probably go to more than any other is the Raphael Theater on 4th Street. Um, they have one very big screening room there and two smaller ones upstairs. So I really enjoy the films that, and I'm always looking at their catalog. What are the upcoming films that are coming?
Mm.
Because I enjoy that.
And other than your own business, what's your favorite business in San Rafael?
Wow. What immediately comes to mind, I am very blessed to be sharing an office with a wonderful acupuncturist and functional medicine doctor. I found that is quite rare. I've been a recipient of acupuncture for probably around 50 years, many different acupuncturists, and to have a combination of a one who's very well. She has actually a doctor in Oriental medicine and a doctor of functional medicine. Have that combination is quite rare. Her name's Dr. Sarah Kendall Gordon, and she happens. I'm luckily I share the office with her. My treatment offices are one end of the office. Hers are at the other end. We have a small but very nice patient waiting room in the middle. And it's just beautiful to collaborate with her. There's been a number of my patients that have referred to her and vice versa. And I actually go to her for care. So she's my acupuncturist and functional medicine doctor. So
That's wonderful.
she immediately comes to mind.
And where can our listeners find you after this podcast?
So my website is pretty simple, adamichchiropractic.com. So that's www.adamich, that's Adam with ICH at the end. So ADAMICH, chiropractic.com. And you can email directly at dr@adamichchiropractic.com. Um, I'm happy to talk with anybody. I do for someone who's not quite sure if they want to start care. I offer a free 20-minute health consultation so they can share with me about what's going on and to see if what I offer could be a good fit for them. And that could be done over the phone, could be done on Zoom, and it could be done in person. I do have some prospective patients that come to the office. They want to meet me personally, see where I work, and that's something I'm happy to do.
Right. I love that you have multiple avenues that they could get in touch with you to get them comfortable. They don't want if they can't do in person or if they're just busy before they actually
Mhm.
step into the office, you give them those options of phone or Zoom. And
Yeah.
do you offer any kind of continued care that people can do like a class or anything like that?
Yes, great question. I do a free, what I call a spinal care class, and I do it about 10 times a year. So it's almost every single month. The next one is going to be on February, I believe it's February 5th, on Monday, February 5th, from 6:30 to 7:30. This is on Zoom. I may be starting in person soon, but for right now, this one's going to be on Zoom.
Hmm.
It's about an hour, and I go over a lot of education about how. I spoke briefly here about the electrical system of the body and how it communicates through the spine. So I talk about how that works in the body so people can understand more and more about how their body functions, what gets in the way of that, and then some specific tools that they can do at home, both at home, posture for their car, ergonomics for their work desk, um, how to sit properly. So I go over some very specific ways that people can take care of themselves in between visits. And you don't have to be a patient to come. It's open to anybody. My patients, their spouses and family can join in. They can invite their friends. So you don't have to be a patient of mine to attend.
Oh, that's wonderful to know. And this podcast is all about highlighting local businesses. Both Marin and Sonoma County are going to be open to this question here. Do you think there's one business in particular that deserves an extra special shout out for the work that they do?
Well, I would have to recommend Dr. Sarah Kendall Gordon of Marin Optimal Health. So, yeah, I believe her website is marinoptimalhealth.com. And she does some great work that I talked about briefly there. So that's immediately what comes to mind.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Robert Adamich, for hopping on the Marin Sonoma Shop Local podcast. We'd love to have you on at a later date and catch up here how maybe at the end of the year how 2024 is gone. So thank
Beautiful.
you so much, and we will see you next time. I am Kyle Masterpool signing off.
Kyle, thanks for what you do. Appreciate it.
Thank you.